I'm Cameron Worth, and this is the GTN Show.
This is the GTN Show, and this week we're getting techie, my favourite.
Oh yeah, we have lots of new releases, what with the Tour de France and the bike show Eurobike. We're also going to be having a look at the new race calendar for 2019 and discussing Plastic In Triathlon.
And not to forget an exciting giveaway, and we're going to be talking about all the exciting race results from the weekend. Right, well, before we move on to the news and the race results for this week, I saw that you were quite busy this weekend, a little triathlon event in Croyd.
Yeah, it's down in the north coast of Devon, and it was absolutely stunning. But the reason I entered it caught my eye, and you might remember watching, we covered it on the show a long time ago because it was advertised as being sort of a plastic-free or a plastic-reducing event, and they had no single-use plastic, which was their kind of strapline. And I mean, irrelevant of that, it was stunning. It was just beautiful, and the sea was like glass, and I mean, the hills were slightly less beautiful. Once you're at the top, they were, because you could see the sea.
I have raced around there before, and I know how tough it is. It's tough terrain.
I need to just start finding flat courses because I'm not good at hills, but it was great, and yeah, stunning in the afternoon in the sea afterwards. But the actual event itself was, brilliant atmosphere. But there were so many things that they did which I just, I loved, and I think so many other organisers can learn from. Just little things like on the course it's cups in cardboard cups, and they're recyclable or compostable ones. But they're not just saying, we're using compostable cups. They're actually then sending them to the local pub that has a composting kind of setup, and they were going to compost them for them. And there were a huge amount of things they did. They used reusable cable ties. Yes, they're still using cable ties, but they're making sure that they use them for their next event. The numbers weren't laminated. They used an electric car to drive around and put the numbers out. One of my favourite things, at the end, you got, instead of like having some sort of tacky memento you're not going to use, you got a reusable coffee mug, bamboo coffee mug, which you filled up with water. Right. So that was your hydration. And my favourite thing was the homemade energy balls. So instead of having, energy bars in wrappers, they were little homemade delicious energy balls, so I had to check those out.
It is a really sensitive topic because you've got London Marathon, for instance, and they've got, I saw a stat, 750,000 bottles or cups used on that day just by the competitors. Yeah. And then you've got all the spectators on top of that buying coffees and all sorts. And it's a staggering amount of single-use plastic by the end of the day, isn't it?
Well, I mean, this was a small event, and I think they said that just from having those cups at the end, 600 litres of water were drunk, and that was would have been the equivalent of 1,200 bottles, and they were saved. And
well, I actually doing the Otelo events recently, and I know there's some other swim run events doing a similar thing. They're almost trying to cut out the use of even cups or plastic cups. They're going as far as saying you've got to carry a crushable, a collapsible cup with you, and you've got to whip that out every aid station, fill that up.
I mean, I like that idea, but then I'm not sure about the salt on it, but I guess you get over that when you've been racing for that long.
I didn't really notice it, but it's a great idea. I really like the idea of that event. And
I think I like, they are sort of, I think, ahead of the game. The Croyd Ocean Triathlon, and they've actually put together a paper to help other organisations. I think they've even offered it to British Triathlon. So hopefully we'll see more events that are learning from Otelo and from.
What are sort of the takeaway points, do you think, from it in sort of education?
I think it's making us as triathletes aware is a big part of it, and any athlete that's competing in these events and giving them the opportunity to be able to do races that aren't. So, because we're all in theory, we ride our bikes instead of riding motorbikes and things like that. So we're good for the environment, but are we actually? And it's making it aware of how easy it is to change things, and it's just a habit that we've got into, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'd also love to hear from you guys as to whether you've actually taken part in an event that is environmentally conscious. So you can enter that poll, yes or no, by clicking up here. And to look at last week's poll results, just pull this up now, we asked whether, Heather asked, have you ever stopped in a race to help someone?
Well, there's actually quite a few interesting comments on this, but the results were 33% of you said yes, 67% said no. But lots of you who said no said you would if you'd had the situation. So we're not judging you on that one.
No, I mean, it's hopefully fairly rare that you're running into someone that's going to need help. But I'm sure most of you out there would help.
Now for the GTN
Caption Competition. I thought I'd wear it this week because I haven't done that for a while.
No, okay, you have to keep it on now for the whole of the Caption Competition. Actually, the rest of the show. Right, well, last week's photo was from Ironman Austria, and it was this picture of the guy with his stroller, looked like racing an Ironman athlete, and we had some good captions, actually, some exceptionally good ones this week. We have 2 runners-up. And our first one is from Max Marolt, who says, "Is this a 2019 model? I need to get my hand on one of those."
Very good. Next one from Jonathan Gurnason. He said, well, coming from the old man, "Don't worry, the GTN told me that you improve with age."
Or so we tell ourselves anyway. Yeah. But our winner is Jack Box. We'll get it off his head, don't worry, and send this cap to you. Just wait until I get my aero bars.
Very good. Well, this is on its way to you. Just get in touch over Facebook to claim that. Now for this week's GTN Caption Competition, and it is a photo from the ITU World Cup in Tijivaras, and it seems to be a Hungarian athlete training before the swim, but it kind of looks like he's being poked by, or they're being poked by.
It's almost like faster, but no, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Yeah.
I do believe they're on a stretch cord, but still very funny, isn't it?
Yeah, well, let's see if you guys can come up with some good captions for that one. Leave your caption suggestions in the comments below. Well, as we mentioned, there is a new racing calendar for 2019. The World Triathlon Series tour has been announced. It's looking fairly similar. It starts in Abu Dhabi again in March. And then it's great to see that Bermuda is back on the map for the 2nd year in a row. I actually saw Flora tweeted about that. She's obviously going to be excited to race on home soil again as defending champion.
Well, obviously Corkscrew Hill didn't put off those athletes too much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that event again. And then it goes on to Yokohama, Leeds. And there's a little bit of a mix-up around the events compared to last year for the next few. And then we go on to the grand final in Lausanne, which takes place at the end of August through to the beginning of September.
Well, looking ahead at next year and talking of new races, Ironman have just announced that they've got a new 70.3 in Thailand, a place called Bang Sang, which is about 45 miles southeast from Bangkok.
Yep, and that inaugural race is going to take place on the 24th of February 2019. Last week, we had the sad news of Terenzo Bezzone being knocked off his bike during his training as he's starting his build prep for the Ironman World Champs. And unfortunately, it was a hit and run accident, and we do have a little bit of an update on that.
Yeah, apparently they've managed to track down the truck driver and speak to him, but we don't know any more than that, other than Terenzo is starting to make a recovery, but sadly it's a pretty awful time in his season and in his career, so we just wish him all the best. It's giveaway time, and this week we have 5 pairs of Continental Grand Prix Attack Force tyres.
Yep, so they come as a combo in this packet. So you've got the GP Attack and then the GP Force. So the Attack is your front tyre, the Force being your rear tyre, and there are slight differences. So the Attack is designed for your front tyre. It's got a slightly different tread pattern, it's slightly lighter and narrower. So it's a 23mm on the front. On the rear, it's designed for bearing a little bit more weight as you distribute your weight differently on the bike, and for the different driving forces through cycling. And it's in a 25mm width. So as Heather said, there's 5 of these to give away. And if you'd like to get your hands on these, then just enter by clicking on the link in the description below.
Well, whilst we're talking of giveaways, we actually have some winners to announce from the previous week's giveaways.
Here we go. Drum roll, please, Heather. Okay, so the Kask Mistral winners for that lovely helmet. We've got one behind you here, Heather. We've got 3 winners. We've got Dieter Comher, we've got Travis Peters, and Graham Lequi.
Well, we have another one to announce as well. It's from the ASSOS kit giveaway. And the winners of that are Ronald Prout, and Jeremy Tate.
Now for Hot or Not, and I'm excited to delve into this week's one because it's very techie. With the Tour de France happening at the moment and the recent Eurobike, which is the biggest bike show in Europe, we've got, well, I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of hot. So to start things this week, we've got one which has won an award from Eurobike, so it's clearly done pretty well.
Yeah, it's the new Ceramic Speed driven drive chain. There's a little bit of a play on words there, but they've basically taken out the chain and put in a little
drive shaft.
Yeah, drive shaft. I mean, I don't know. I want to see this in person. It looks incredible from the pictures, and it's basically claiming to be more efficient than even the most efficient drive chain that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, we know Ceramic's been for optimizing chain systems and taking away any friction and just improving efficiency with their oversized jockey wheel systems, their nice chains, their lubricants, all sorts. They've taken it one step further with this. We've got a few stats here. So they claim it's 49% less friction compared to a stock Dura 8 drivetrain, 32% less friction than their ceramic speed UFO chain and oversized pulley wheels. As you said already, they're trying to improve efficiency. They say they've got it to around 99% efficiency.
Yeah, it's getting close to the elusive 100, hey?
Pretty impressive. We're going to give this a hot.
Well, next up, we've got 3 new products from Wahoo. Last week, we talked about the new Wahoo Kicker Climb that is now available for pre-order and is pretty much out there for you to get your hands on. They've got 3 new products to go with it.
Yeah, well, the first one is essentially an update of their previous Kicker Smart Trainer. It's been updated in a few ways. One is with the noise that it puts out. So you can now use this in a library, they say. So it's so quiet that, yeah, you can barely hear it. So they've improved the flywheel in there. And I mean, this is really useful, for instance, if you're using it in a flat or with other,
or you've got a child sleeping or something you want to do whilst your baby's sleeping.
Yeah. Or you're doing late night sessions.
Yeah, well, I mean,
on the bike. On the bike. And then we have the Wahoo Kicker Core, which is their slightly more basic model of the Kicker Smart Trainer. It uses the same flywheel technology, but it's a slightly lighter and more compact design. And then the third product we have is the Kicker Headwind Smart Fan. Sounds silly, but actually this is really clever. I quite like this. So it actually can connect to your smart trainer and it will basically increase the wind or the fan as you're going downhill or increasing your speed.
I do want to try this out.
Or you can connect it to your heart rate monitor, so then it takes into account your intensity that you're working at. So as you're working harder, it'll increase the fan speed. Or of course, you can just set into normal mode.
Sounds pretty cool. The fact you don't have to wear a helmet when you're on the bike, you can just have like your hair flowing in the wind while cycling along.
Yeah, I mean, I like you showed last week. I've used the Climb. This is a whole package. It's really cool. So I'm definitely giving this a hot.
Same.
Well, we often complain that bikes look far too alike or come from the same factories as one another. Well, how about this one from Sipo? It is the Shadow R, and it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Well, it's definitely taking new boundaries to what we call a bicycle, and we've seen various leaps and bounds, so to speak, in the cycle industry. I mean, even the P5X still gets quite a few looks when we're out and about at races and things. So I think if you were riding this, you would certainly get noticed.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they take the attention away from us now when we're riding
we're just,
but this, essentially it's taken away the seat tube, the seat stays, as we sort of seen similar on the P5X. But the big difference is the front end of this bike, because there's almost this horizontal beam going through the whole bike, taking away the traditional forks. And the idea being that the wind then, or the air flows around the front of the bike, along this beam, across the bike and across the rear stays onto the rear wheel. It kind of makes sense. It doesn't look like it will ride that well, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
I mean, you might not get any mud splashing at you with that sort of effect of a mud guard at the front. So maybe it's a good winter bike.
Yeah, I mean, they have mentioned that they'd hope to see Andy Potts on it at Kona this year, and it will be available around October, November time this year.
I mean, amazing if we get to actually see it in Kona. It would be pretty cool.
And like you said, I do like the fact that people are pushing boundaries, but for me, this just it's a not hot.
Next up, Tacx Neo have launched a new concept smart bike. Well, actually their first smart bike with a virtual flywheel that apparently hopes to be able to be adjustable to the rider's weight to give a more accurate riding feel. And they also hope to be able to enable it to give you the feeling of riding on cobbles, if that's what you're after.
Pretty odd, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I try and avoid cobbles personally, but...
really cool function. As you've said already, it is still a concept, but they're thinking it would be somewhere in the region of £2,000 to £2,500.
Ooh.
I don't know.
And it can't go outside.
I mean, they have classed it as a premium exercise bike, to be fair. Premium. And I go and buy a lot of the Tacx stuff in the past. It's good quality. So, yeah, I can give this a hot. But let's take it up a notch here and go on to the Forapista
Now
bike.
we're talking.
Yeah, so this has been designed by, well, with the artistic vision of Adriano Design.
There's definitely some artistic vision going on here. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's something else. And the idea being that, well, just the architectural beauty, they say, it should fit into your home beautifully.
If only my home was that beautiful.
Well, so I was going to say, I think this will stand out in my home.
Yeah,
I think this will...
It would be the masterpiece.
I think this will suit your mansion, if you live in a mansion.
Yeah. Well, it is made from oak, glass, high polished aluminium, and they're throwing in a Brooks leather saddle just to make sure you get your full money's worth.
Why not? Absolutely. And it has got, obviously, an inbuilt power meter, well, very accurate to plus minus 2.5%. And because you wouldn't want cables going up to this lovely bike in your mansion, they've made it wireless as well. So it charges on these lithium-ion batteries. And this all comes in for 14,000 euros.
Well, I think if I had 14,000 euros spare, I'd give it a hot.
Right, well, let's kick the race news off with probably the biggest race of the weekend, the Ironman European Champs in Frankfurt. And, well, we had a big showdown on both the men's and the women's side. But let's start on the men's. It was a non-wetsuit swim. And unsurprisingly, we saw Josh Amberger pushing the pace. But interestingly, Jan Frodeno didn't stick with him, which we would have thought he may have done, stuck on his feet. So Amberger came out with about a 1 minute 46 lead over Jan Frodeno. But then Jan Frodeno had Patrick Lange on his feet.
Yeah, he must have been slightly concerned about that, or maybe he wasn't, as it turned out. And we thought that he might have made a bit of a move to try and get onto Amberger's wheel, so to speak, at some point in the race, but didn't make that much of an effort until, well, obviously he was making an effort, but didn't start to close that gap until later on, and actually had Lange close with him on the bike and Patrick Nilsson. Yeah,
so then when they went onto the run, I think everyone was, well, slightly concerned, given that Jan Frodeno's had his crash recently.
Yeah, or excited. I mean, to see like the challenge that, you know, Patrick Lange and Patrick Nilsson were going to put on Frodeno.
But it didn't seem to happen at all, because Frodeno just went away with it.
Yeah.
It was almost seemed like he was in a different class on the day. Ran away with it and almost putting in 8 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes into Lange and Nilsson. It was actually Jan Frodeno took the win, obviously, and then Patrick Nilsson took second, and then Lange in third.
I think we should also mention Josh Amberger finishing fourth. I mean, he came into T2 with a lead, a really strong bike, you know, doing the bike all on his own on the front, and to still hang on for fourth, a strong performance there. Well, on the women's side, all eyes were on the 3 times Kona world champion Daniela Ryf, but also Sarah True stepping up to her first full-distance Ironman race. And those two led out of the swim. It was actually Daniela who was on the feet of Sarah True. They had about a 2-minute lead on the rest of the field, and then onto the bike where Daniela is pretty strong. And she didn't disappoint. By halfway, she had a 15-minute lead. But by then, Sarah Crowley had actually overtaken Sarah True and was, I think, about 40 seconds up on her. But Daniela just continued to open up that gap.
Yeah, I think she came into transition with a 27-minute lead over Crowley, and then half an hour over the likes of True and Haug, which is just something else.
Yeah.
And she just carried on.
Yeah. Well, talking of Haug, that was also her debut full Ironman distance race. And I mean, incredible performances from Haug and True to like be up there racing at that level at their very first attempt. But it did come down to a running race for the lesser positions, not for Daniela. She went away to take that win very comfortably.
With a 2:58 marathon, so not bad.
Without even without having to run that fast. It's amazing, isn't it? But the battle then was, like I said, for the other positions, and it was Sarah True who ended up coming second. She dropped back at one point into fourth as Anne Haug, who we know is such a strong runner, looked like she was going to really make an impression on this, and I think she started to fade towards the latter stages of the marathon. So Sarah True came through to take second place, and it was Sarah Crowley who finished third, and Anna Haug was fourth.
Now for Ironman 70.3 Ecuador, and in the men's race it was Igor Amorelli that pretty much led or was near the front for more or less the whole race. He dominated in the swim and for most of the bike, and actually pushed on in the later kilometres to open up about a minute gap on Australia's Tim Ree. Onto the run, Tim actually managed to match the pace of the leader, Igor Amorelli, in the first half, but then Igor really pushed the pace in the second half to take the win by around 3 minutes Tim took second, Tim Reed that is, and in third it was Paul Matthews.
Well, on the women's side, it was a pretty dominant performance from Lauren Brandon. We know she's a very strong swimmer, and she didn't look back after that. She went onto the run with an 8-minute lead and maintained it to take the win very comfortably, ahead of Laura Vassler in second and Kelsey Withrow in third, making it an All-American podium.
Over at Ironman 70.3 Jönköping, we had a big battle on our hands in the men's race because you had Florian Angert and Peter Hemerich racing neck to neck. They came out side by side out of the swim, stayed neck to neck on the bike, and then on the run they pretty much stayed side by side all the way through that until the latter stages where Florian managed to push ahead to take the win by 19 seconds over Peter Hemerich. In third it was Max Newman.
Well, on the women's side, the host nation of Sweden had quite a lot to look forward to because Assa Lundström and Lisa Norden were both racing, who were probably the equal favourites, but Assa Lundström had actually been struggling with a back injury in the lead up. So sadly, she wasn't able to perform at her best, but Lisa Norden didn't disappoint. She led out of the swim, being a very strong swimmer, but it was the notoriously strong biker Kimberly Morrison who overtook her towards the latter stages of the bike, came into T2 first, but didn't quite have the run to match. So Lisa Norden took the lead and took the overall win ahead of Kimberly Morrison in second, and then it was Kerry Morris who finished third.
As we talk right now, we have the ITU Multisport World Championship Festival taking place in Denmark, and the first medal event of that was the ITU World Duathlon Championships. That consists of a 10-kilometer run, a 36-kilometer bike, and then finishing with a 4.9-kilometer run. So very fast. In the men's race, not much actually happened on the first run, but as they went onto the bike, a small breakaway group formed, including our GTN friend, Mark Buckingham. We had Johan Lebert in there and Andreas Schilling. And that group managed to stay away until the run, and it was Andreas Schilling that pushed ahead to take the win. Johan Lebert took second, and then Mark Buckingham took third.
Well, on the women's race, there was actually a bit of a move early on in the run. It was Ayu Ida who came into T1 first, but she was soon joined on the bike by 3 other athletes, including the defending champion from last year, Felicity Sheedy-Ryan, along with Georgia Schweining and Ilis Sandrina. And those 4 worked together. They had a 15-second margin coming into T2 for that final 4.9k. And it was Ilis Sandrina who went away to take the overall win, ahead of Ayu Ida, who came home in second, and then it was Georgia Schweining who took third.
Okay, now for Otelo Engadin, which is the 4th round of the Otelo World Series, and this is one of the most picturesque ones. I really want to do this race. It actually takes place at altitude. It's between 1,800 and 2,100 meters.
Oh, you'd feel that, for sure.
And it basically, from what I understand, you swim through the lake, run up the mountain a bit, swim in the next lake, run up the mountain, swim.
Wow.
Pretty hard.
That's got to burn, isn't it?
Yeah, so it goes over 46 kilometers. You've got 40 kilometers of trail running and 6 kilometers of swimming. And as you can imagine, glacier water, pretty cold.
Oh, yeah. Well, the results, we're getting pretty used to these results. Actually, the men, it was Team Garmin who just dominating. On the women's side, it was Team Envol who were doing just the same. And again, for the mixed, it was Team Toulet Crew. Well, our final bit of race news for this week is from Xterra Victoria in Canada. And in the women's race, it was pretty close between the eventual 3 podium finishers. They came out of the swim just within 5 seconds of each other. But then onto the bike course, and it was 3 times Xterra world champion Mel McQuaid who did what she does best and had a very strong bike ride to come into T2 with the lead. But Julie Baker ended up with a stronger run, came through to take the win by almost 2 minutes. It was Mel McQuaid who finished in second, and then third place, it ended up being Fabio Carola.
Well, in the men's race, it was Brent McMahon that led out of the swim with Brandon Rakita hot on his heels. And then around 2 minutes back, actually, it was Hosea Midor and Kieran McPherson. And those guys came storming through on the bike and took the lead by the end of the bike. And it's Kieran McPherson that went away to take the win. Hosea Midor took second, and then Brandon Rakita in third. Now for the Pain Cave. And starting things this week, we've got one over Instagram in from Ifranzi Dutry.
Yeah, well, he's got a pretty impressive setup, as well as an impressively large cat that's in the foreground.
I think you need to get him on the turbo.
Yeah. Well, he's got a Cervelo, potentially a P2 or P3 that he's riding. It's nice to actually have someone in the shot of the Pain Cave for a change.
Very cool.
Evidence.
Yeah, and you've got your foam roller there, little massage sort of bar thing, I think that is. Swiss ball. And
a lot of medals.
A lot of medals.
And a bit of motivation written on the wall.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it says. I think it says, if you think you can, you are halfway there.
Yeah, fill in the
Boom.
blank if we're wrong. Let us know.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, next one is from Ewan Hudson. And, well, check this out. Look at that
Wow.
view.
Who needs a Zwift or a TV screen when you're looking at that?
That's incredible, isn't it?
Wow, it looks like a painting.
It
apart
is.
from the wooden reflection.
Yeah, really lovely. I don't know
we should
what
look at the bike, shouldn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't actually figure out what bike that is there, and I don't recognise the decals on it. So do let us know.
Yeah, we'll just look at the view. It's
Very nice. Yeah, very jealous. Next one is a little bit more rugged and industrial, and it says, it's never crowded on the extra mile on the wall.
Wow.
That it almost looks like a dungeon.
It's the Cervelo P2 that I was riding last year. Love that bike.
Lovely. Nice. And they've got their little, it looks like a little Zwift setup.
Yeah, I think you need something to look at there, because that is otherwise torture at a concrete wall in your face. A little bit different to the mountains.
And I do like I think this is a work stand for the bike, and they've actually attached their phone up there so that they can, I guess, interact on Zwift. That's a really good idea.
Cool, good hack.
Yeah, really good hack, actually.
Nice.
Might nab that myself. And this one, it's coming from Champion United over Instagram
Not too much
as
of
well.
a champ right now, is he?
Yeah, I feel your pain because I've broken my collarbone before and I've had to do something similar. And yeah, this looks quite fresh looking at the.
Yeah, you don't want to be
cuts
sweating in those wounds, do you?
No.
Ouch.
So
But hardcore.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, good work. Well, please do keep sending in your pain caves using the hashtag GTN Pain Cave. You can send that in over Instagram, Twitter, or even just send it in over Facebook.
Well, that's it for this week's show. And don't forget to enter the giveaway for your chance to win a pair of those Continental tyres.
Yeah, and if you'd like to see more videos from GTN, you can click on that globe and subscribe. If you'd like to see some more tech, and this one's coming from Challenge Rot, you can see that by clicking down here.